Strikemasters are lined up down at the right-hand end of the airfield. They're going to be getting airborne from the hard runway to go out and fall initially before our first Strike proper gets into the air. The Strikemasters range we've seen Duxford several times in recent seasons, but are opening it on the show this afternoon as well. Some of you may have seen elsewhere, usually Duxford.
Quite familiar, and you think it's a Jet Provost. Well, that's not quite right, but this is of course a derivative of the highly successful Jet Provost. Buy or operate more expensive bespoke frontline types. And it was also suitable, if they wished, as an advanced jet trainer. In those frontline roles. It also received an uprated version of the Rolls-Royce Viper engine. And of course, as we can see, it received a number of underwing weapons hardpoints which could carry such as gun packs, bombs, drop tanks and so forth that took them on strength, being those of South Yemen, Oman, Kuwait, Botswana, Singapore, Kenya, New Zealand, Ecuador and Sudan. And several of those used them in combat. Ecuador did so, so did South Yemen, but Oman did so in particular. USA recall some of this type's most active frontline service. The Strikemasters of what was then known as the Sultan of Oman's Air Force were heavily engaged in the Dhofar Rebellion. That was a conflict in which communist-backed rebel forces, which were known as the Adu, meaning the enemy, troops that much more rapidly if required, and of course its armament was significantly more potent. In from the left for a topside pass. These aircraft were equipped by the MI with 16 of those Sura rockets and a pair of 540-pound bombs, plus a pair of 7.62mm machine guns of the Omani Strikemasters were shot down during the course of the whole rebellion. Now in come the two aircraft towards us for a break. So it was not a familiar sight in British skies during its active service years, but it's become much more familiar in retirement, with quite significant numbers of them having passed through UK civilian hands. And this pair, operated by North Wales Military Aviation Services, based at Hawarden Airfield in Chester, is the most common. Went on to the civil register in the UK in 2005. A very smart grey scheme is the one that it wore on entry into service with the now Royal Air Force of Oman. It's a very low-hour airframe, 2004 UK civilian hands for quite a while. It's a Mark 80A model. That's the second of the two aircraft you can see before the barrel roll in front of us. Is that of an Omani example. That aircraft was the subject of a 14-year restoration at Hawarden, and it made its maiden flight in July 2018. It became the first ex-military classic jet to be issued with a new permit to fly by the UK Civil Aviation Authority for quite some time. This was a very effective little light attack aircraft in its day. It has all manual flying controls, which pilots say means it feels quite heavy to fly at high speeds in particular. But it removes, of course, the risk factor associated with having extra hydraulic pipe work, which would be particularly the case in the sort of low-level attack environment that these aircraft are most active in. The effectiveness of the concept of the Strikemaster was displayed many times during armed operations in which these aircraft served, when these aeroplanes would return to base safely in spite of having sustained significant damage. The two aircraft then turning back in towards us for the final manoeuvre of their display. Well, they don't see the nose lights come on. There they go, and the smoke once again in on the B-axis. The final break by the pair of BAC Strikemasters.
Time when rather fewer such aircraft are now on the circuit than used to be the case. The proud Welsh Club, the latest of the restorations, the Mark 80A Strikemaster, that was flown by Ian Brett.